Well, we have the legend, Eddie Sharkey, the trainer of champions. You have trained some of the greatest wrestlers in wrestling history, and all of them from this area, Minnesota area. Can you kind of tell us how you got into the wrestling business?
In the business or in training?
Just how you started, because I know we were talking, you kind of had a troubled youth, and then...
Troubled youth, yes.
Yeah, do you want to just kind of tell us maybe some of your life story?
I'll show you a picture.
Let's start with the fact that you were Harley Race's best friend and that you got started in the carnival circuit the same way he did. Can you explain what the carnival circuit was?
Well, you have a ad show, the athletic show, and one guy's in the inside and the other guy's in the crowd, and he challenges you and you work as many matches as you can. They're only 3-4 minutes, and then you work another one, and you keep rehashing the crowd in and out and hopefully make some money.
And the guy who's in the crowd is a plant, basically.
Yes.
He's your, okay.
Yeah.
So that's how you guys got started. Now, can you tell me about how you and Harley met? And because you were telling us you used to travel with him and you had some crazy road stories.
Oh, they all were crazy. He come up here and he had nowhere to live, and Wally Carbo called up, and because I had a house with 3 bedrooms, I rent out rooms to wrestlers, and asked if I could rent a room to Harley. I said, yeah. And they lived in my house for years, and we had a wonderful time. Not many parties. We didn't party at home or nothing. We'd be out in the bars and Hennepin Avenue and God knows where.
But you guys got into a lot of fights, you said. And you were young guys.
We were young guys. We were young and crazy and didn't care.
What was an average week for a wrestler? Like, you started in the 50s, correct?
60s.
60s? Okay.
At 61 I started.
How did you kind of get involved? How did they start booking you and things like that?
Well, as I told you earlier, we all hung out together because I had wrestled on the carnival. I was smart to the business, but I wasn't in the big time like they were here.
Yeah.
And one day in Luigi's, I told you earlier, I was just walking down the aisle, and there's a girl sitting there. She was waiting for a wrestler named Jim Haiti. And a guy, she was a stripper from one of the places down Hennepin Avenue. And a guy sat down next to her and hit her right in the face. So I caught him with a double left. He was half up and half down. I kind of cheated, you know.
Yeah.
You never give him a chance, you know that.
Hit him while he's sitting down.
He was half up and half down. I made it even easier because his hands were on the table. You know, boom, I got him. And took him out. And then his big friend come charging down the aisle at me. And he walked right into a beautiful right hand. Caught him. He flew back, and Luca Brazzi, Lenny Montana, caught him, threw him out the door. And he came back in looking for his friend. He had the biggest lump on his head any of us has ever seen. I must have caught him right there. And the next week I was wrestling.
Okay. So, wow. So you were a legit tough guy.
Pretty much so, yeah.
So you said that, you were telling us all kinds of stories about how you guys looked out for each other, the wrestlers, because the fans were so kind of crazy in those days.
Yes, that's all we had was each other.
You were the NWA champion, though.
Yes. And then all of a sudden I had to start wrestling 1 hour. With guys like Pat O'Connor, I were great workers. I mean, but an hour, I don't care who you're wrestling with. It's hard and a long time. And so I just dropped the belt. I said, here, take this back. I dropped the belt to Ronnie Etchison in St. Joe, Missouri, and I said, that's it for me.
Now, Harley loved being champ, didn't he? He was champ so many times.
He was a real champion. He was real tough.
Now, you said that you guys used to go to bars, and he would kind of like instigate fights, or he liked fights?
No. He liked to fight, but he never started a fight. No. But he'd had the bleach blonde hair, and people would see him on TV, and they'd go after him. He never bothered nobody ever, but they'd go after him, and they learned the hard way. That was a bad mistake. Can
you tell us that story you were telling us earlier about in the bar about what he ended up in the hospital for with the guy that he was fighting?
Oh, is that the one?
Didn't you say he popped some guy's eye?
I think that was in Denver, Colorado at the wrestling matches. Let me see. He pulled out the guy's eye, but the guy bit right through his finger.
And you said they both ended up in the same...
They both ended up in the same hospital, yeah. And I just a few feet away, I kicked the guy in the head as hard as I could. It didn't move him at all. But that only lasts, fights only last a few seconds. And ended a perfect evening.
Now, one of our favorite things. I mean, because Katie and I are both, we're both children of the 80s.
Yeah.
All of our favorite wrestlers, you said too many to name, but we can say the Legion of Doom / Road Warriors, Ravishing Rick Rude, Barry Darsow, who was Smash from Demolition, Bob Backlund, Jesse Ventura, Rick Steiner. You trained all of these guys.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Just by accident. A friend of mine, Ron Peterson, an ex-wrestler, and I had a gym on 7th and Hennepin, the 7th Street Gym. So I had a ring, and I had a place to train them. But I went to many places. And we just started. We started with Bob Backlund and Jesse Ventura at $500 a piece. And then from there it went up to $3,000 a piece.
Because you were...
But then they didn't have the money. Most of them...
Right, they have to pay you later kind of deal?
They never paid me at all. I said, no, forget it. I said, I know the guys. I said, no, forget it.
See, that's one of the things we were talking about earlier is like, I had always heard that Vern Gagne, who was big in these parts, he would always train guys, but he would say, you have to pay me 20% for the next 10 years or whatever. Yes. And you actually had a falling out with him that you just left AWA altogether and started your own wrestling organization, right?
My own promotion, my own school, everything, and did well. Made money. Had a big house in Edina. Nice family.
And I had asked you, I was curious because I knew the wrestling business was kind of cutthroat. I said, did Vern ever try and sabotage you? And you said no, he actually never did.
No, he never did. I never tried to hurt him either. We're in the same business. And in fact, after it's all over, I went back to work for him as a referee.
Yeah, you refereed.
But he wanted the Road Warriors, see. So,
is that the case?
Take me along with the Warriors and a few other guys.
Okay, so can you tell us how you met the Road Warriors and Rick Rude?
Well, I had to get a job. I got a job. I was going to be a bartender. But I had to work until there was an opening for about 2-3 months as a bouncer until there was an opening. So we bounced together at the toughest place in Minneapolis called Gramma. And there we, a lot of fights. We always won. And it's the beginning of it all. It all started.
Now, did you offer to train them, or did they come to you? Did they have ambitions?
No. They came to me, and I said, I don't want to get back in the business. I'm out of the business, and just let it go. And they kept on me, and I said, okay, we found a place in a church basement, and that was the beginning.
So you trained in that first batch. Was it like, how many people would you say when you started doing that again?
I had only started about 4 or 5 guys, and when I ended up, I was... 14, 15 guys. Almost all of them were successful too.
Yeah, we were talking about that. You said the only problem was that they would listen to you on everything you said, except for what?
Drinking and fighting and everything else.
The drugs and stuff like that.
Oh, the drugs. Yeah, that was the hardest.
Because you said you knew they were like going out back and doing it even when they were training, right?
Well. They were nice enough that they wouldn't do it in front of me. Yeah. The best I could do. They go out and back, and God knows what they do.
Now, how long did you say that you trained each wrestler before you thought they were ready to move on to professional?
3 months.
And then how did they end up getting jobs?
They were good, and they looked so good. You just look at them. Well, my friend, one of my oldest friends, Ole Anderson, was a promoter in Atlanta. They had that big NWA down there. And he would actually fly up and come right into Gramma B's on the dance hall floor and take them off. So you be on the plane next week, and you two be on the plane in 2 weeks. And that was, sometimes it takes a lifetime to get booked. It's almost impossible. Yeah. For some people, it is impossible. They never get booked.
Lots of competition in that field, too.
Yes. And
everybody wants to be a wrestler.
This is the biggest territory in the world. Guys used to tell me, get a call from Minneapolis would be a call from heaven. And a lot of them never got it. And they were very good, too. They just never got it. And these guys walked right in.
And Road Warriors, like we were talking earlier, now they're considered by our generation to be the greatest tag team of all time. Did you foresee that when you started training them?
Oh, no. Who'd ever think they'd go? I know they do well, but I never thought they'd do that well. And they just kept getting better and better. And as they spent more time in the ring, they improved. And in fact, we all were excited when the Road Warriors had their first match on television that was from Atlanta. And we were watching the TV, and they squashed the guys and looked great and left the ring. And then all of a sudden, Hawk come flying back in the ring and pinned the guy. He was so excited, he forgot to pin him.
Oh, wow.
So we all had a good laugh.
Did you train them to be a tag team, or did you train them as individual singles wrestlers?
I trained them as single wrestlers. They got together themselves and did that.
And you said in that first batch it was like Hawk Animal and Rick Rude.
Barry Darsow.
And Barry Darsow.
Yeah.
Who was the toughest of all of those guys?
We'll never know. The meanest, the toughest was probably Hawk. The toughest was Rick Rude, I think. I think Rick Rude was the toughest. He was, because we worked together when I had to work as a bouncer. God, he was tough. He
like strong or just a good fighter or what?
A good fighter. Just a real strong, fast, hit hard. But he never hit with a closed fist. He was an open, he'd slap him. I never seen nothing like it. Like the guy's head exploded. Boom! And that was it. It was over. The guy was out.
Wow.
He was, I guess, about the toughest of all.
Wow. Now, you said that you ended up going and you worked for Vince McMahon also as a referee.
Yes, I did for a long time. He was very good to me.
And you said that one of the things that all the wrestlers kind of love is the camaraderie of being with the boys and everything. Can you talk about what traveling throughout your career was like? What an average week or something for you would be like?
Well, that was what it was all about, being with the guys, hanging out with the guys. Because we all had so much in common. We liked each other. But, you know, one day we might be in Winnipeg. We'd have to drive to Winnipeg, wrestle, and drive back. Maybe take a day off, maybe not. The next night would be Chicago or maybe some small town like Brainerd or something like that. And then we'd have Omaha, Green Bay, and we had to drive. Every once in a while they'd fly us to Chicago or Denver. They flew us to Denver. That would be too long a drive. And we went on and on like that. It was a way of life. We were used to it.
And you were saying, like, kind of for you, it was just you got tired of not being around your family and things like that. Is that kind of why you stepped away?
Yes. No, at the time, that was before I was married. I wasn't married then. And then when I got married and had a family, and Vince wanted to send me all around the country and many parts of the world as a referee, and I didn't want to be away from my family. My kids were young, and, you know, a chance to watch them grow up and be with them. And we had a nice home. And so I just stayed home, and I just worked, you know, Minneapolis, St. Paul, maybe Chicago or Green Bay, but no more than that.
I'm so shocked that with you being in these parts, people that love wrestling history didn't come seek you out and say, train me. Like, let me be, you know, I love the Road Warriors, train me. Did that happen?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
Would you train them? Or
sure.
When you closed the book, you were just done?
Oh, no. I kept training guys and training, and they'd come with the money. You know, you're sitting there and some guy comes up to you, and he looks great anyway, and gives you $3,000. What are you going to say? I said,
now,
welcome to wrestling.
When I read about was that when you started training a lot of these guys, like especially at the church, there were no mats. Is that true?
There was a mat. There was half a mat. The stuffing was out and everything, and the ring was, 2x4s, and it was really terrible. But
so they really had to get tough quick as far as getting thrown around and things like that.
There's no room for mistakes. If you come down on your head or something, you break your neck. You come down on your elbow, you break your elbow. That's why they were so good. That's why they're so mean.
Now, when you trained guys for wrestling, did you also train them in talking, cutting promos, or was it just a physical?
No, promos, they did, like the Hawk had that great interview. That was all him. He made that up himself. That's everything. He did that all himself.
Yeah, you were saying, because I was wondering, one of the things I know people are going to ask is like, when did the face paint and all that? And you were saying that was all a lot of Bill Watts?
Bill Watts and Ole Anderson put that together down in New Orleans.
They were great. And they were great to you, you said.
They were wonderful friends. I miss them every day. I think about them all the time.
Now, when we sat down, one of the cool things that I was like really blown away by is you said, they're making a movie about me.
Yeah.
But we'll see if it actually gets made.
Well, you know how that goes. So a lot of us have been through it. And I've been out there twice to California, and we'll see what happens.
Do you know what they want to focus on as far as your life? Is it your wrestling career, your training, or how do you know what they want to do?
Violence, like all movies. We had a lot of violence. We're violent people. We're in the violent business.
Yeah.
And we had to live up to it if we got in a fight outside the ring in a bar or something. You know, we had a reputation. We had to protect our reputation in the business. We had to protect the business, the wrestling business also.
Yeah, you were telling us that like one of the guys you got into a fight because he was hitting on your wife, and another guy you guys didn't get along with because he used to call the wrestlers' wives and
Yeah,
rat them out.
that's true. That's another wrestler.
So a
Yeah.
big part of it was like the camaraderie of.
But that's the only time it happened in my whole life, because wrestlers are good guys, and they're very loyal to each other, and that's the only time it happened. And we got rid of them.
Yeah, I was shocked kind of by that when we were talking. You said everybody in the wrestling business is a nice guy because if
Yeah.
they're not, they don't work.
That's exactly it.
So a lot of these guys you see on TV and you think they're just horrible guys. They're actually pretty nice guys,
Very
or at
nice
least
guys
to the guys.
You can't be in the business unless you're a nice guy. You're trusting the guy with your body. He can drop you on your head and kill you and break your neck or break your arm or something. You trust each other. It was a tough business, but it was a good business. Nice friends. Good friends.
I was kind of surprised. I guess it never had dawned on me, but we were talking about when guys started oiling themselves up to look good in the ring, and you were saying that's so dangerous. That's like
Well, very few people did it really. But you could slip and come down on your head and break your neck. And it was slimy feeling, just creepy.
So who were some of your favorite people to wrestle?
Oh, they were all great. Harley Race, Danny Hodge was great. Crusher was great. Even the Bruiser was,
Yeah, you were saying the Crusher was like a great friend of yours.
a wonderful guy. Great guy.
Awesome. That is so cool. I mean, like so many legends that you worked with and that you wrestled and didn't get hurt. I mean,
No.
how old are you now?
It's about 82 or something like that. Somewhere around there.
And you're still
83 maybe.
it's like we were saying like you outlived everybody that you trained.
I was lucky.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, see, I never took steroids. I never took drugs. I had no drugs. One thing in my promotion, I don't care if you're taking run your head through the wall. I don't care. No drugs. I wouldn't allow no drugs or alcohol. Well, maybe a few guys maybe have a drink or something for them. That's all right. They wouldn't hurt nobody. No drugs. And it didn't do any good anyway. They got the drugs and died.
Yeah, because like you were telling us, you said you start making a lot of money and you're on the road and you got all that money to kill time with.
Too much money. Too fast, too soon. And they're young kids. They were just young, 25, 27 years old, something like that. They're just young guys. And they had all that money and they like to have, they're good natured.
Yeah.
They like to have fun. They want to have fun, which they did. They lived great lives, though. Wonderful lives.
We were talking, I had heard a rumor that the Road Warriors at one point owned the clothing that they wore, the Zuba.
Zubas. So.
Yeah, and you said that was absolutely true. That's crazy. Yeah. That was like a legendary warm-up for that.
And the gym. We got a great gym out in Plymouth.
Oh, did they?
They own that. Them and another guy named Jim Younger, who was a good guy, too. They own a beautiful gym out there, well-equipped.
Did the guys keep in contact with you after you trained them? Did you see Joe or Mike Hegstrom?
As much as they could, because they all moved. They seemed to like to live in Atlanta or Florida. And a lot of them moved away, but I see them at the shows quite often. And we'd hang out together. We figured, well, I'll see you next week. If I don't, then they died.
I thought it was cool that, I assumed when you said, we sat down, you said you lived in Hollywood for a long time. Yes. I assumed it was wrestling, and you were saying, no, I just want to get out of Minnesota
Well,
do
that's a big
stuff.
thing in Minnesota. Everyone went to Hollywood in the winter. I wrestled there after I started in the business. I forget the name of the building down there.
Did you wrestle at the Olympic? Or
Olympic, I wrestled
the
at the
Olympic. I was going to say, that's legendary.
Yeah,
the Guerreros and...
Yeah.
Roddy Piper. Did you train people in California as well, or was that kind of later on in your career?
In fact, I got a poster in there from the Olympic Auditorium. I'll show you.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. So what are some of the memories when you think back on your career? I guess what are some of the things that you are most proud of? That, when somebody goes up to you and says like, oh, wow, you were a wrestler. I mean, what is it in your life that is like maybe your favorite story?
Oh, I was proud of my work, but I was more proud of the guys I trained.
Really?
Yeah, just being around the guys, and that was a great feeling.
If I throw out some names, can you maybe tell us what you thought of them as far as people that you trained?
That would be fun.
How about Tom Zink?
Wonderful guy, great guy. Picture him right up there somewhere.
How did you end up meeting Tom Zink?
He came to me one day and wanted to be a wrestler. A really great guy. Something happened to him, down in Atlanta. I heard it was over a girl or something, and he didn't leave the house for years, and then he died. It was very sad because he was a wonderful guy.
Wasn't he like the strong man of Minnesota or something like that at one point? One year he was like he was a, I forget what it was, like bodybuilding champion or something one year before he was wrestling.
So many guys had so many championships back then. He was something. He was very good at what he did.
I read that they said like the only real problem he had was he just wasn't a great talker on camera.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, that's got a lot to do with it. That's very hard. It's harder than you think it is. It's hard.
Well, we'll go polar opposite then. Jesse the Body Ventura. What was Jesse like to train?
He was fun. Good-natured guy. A lot of fun to be around. He was a good guy.
Did any of them come in with any airs like they didn't want to listen, or you had to kind of assert like, hey, I'm the guy that you came to learn from?
Not that I can think of. The wrestler's got to have that attitude. You don't want to think you're better than anybody else or tell anyone what to do. No, they all were nice guys. I wouldn't have trained them.
And what about Rick Rude?
Great guy. I don't know if you ever, a story one time, I was refereeing at the Target Center. Now, Rick Rude came to me, he didn't have any money. I said, oh, come on, it's all right, come on with the guys. Yeah.
Was he married or anything at the time? Or
at the time he came to me, he was, but later on he got married and did quite well. So I was refereeing at the Target Center, and he came up to me and between matches, and he said, here, he said, I owe you this, and gave me $900 bills.
Really?
A handful of $100 bills.
Just out of the blue?
Oh, I felt like crying. I didn't know what to do. I just hugged him, and yeah, just for nothing. He said, here, I owe this to you.
That,
great guy, isn't that
yeah,
great?
You don't hear about people
No,
doing stuff like that.
No, you hear about all the bad things, but you never hear about the good things, and he was just a wonderful guy.
Now, what about somebody like Rick Steiner, who was already an accomplished college wrestler coming into professional wrestling?
Just a good guy, great wrestler, did everything right, made no mistakes. One time there was a guy I don't know how he got in, or we had the money, that's how we got in. I should have let him in, but yeah, the money. And he got tough with Rick Steiner. And Rick Steiner had him down, tied up in a knot so quick you couldn't believe it. Oh, wow. he was good. He was but he was a nice guy too.
Was Bob Backlund? Because when you look at Bob Backlund, if you didn't know he's a wrestler, you'd think this guy, back in the day, you'd think you could beat him. Anybody could beat him up, I feel like, but then you see him in the ring. This guy was tough.
He was good at everything he did.
What was he like when he came to you? How old was he?
He was pretty young. He was just a real nice guy, very polite. All wrestlers are polite, Very polite, very nice. It was just a pleasure working with him.
Now, when did you end up leaving Gramma B's? Because I feel like if Gramma B, because you said that was such a rough spot until they cleaned it up.
Toughest place in town.
It was like a biker bar, you said?
No, they tried, but the wrestlers, they're pretty tough.
Yeah, so that's what I was kind of going to go into. Is I would feel like if you're a bartender at Gramma B's, that's like, why give up that job? Because you can just keep recruiting these tough door guys to be wrestlers. But you said it kind of they cleaned it up basically.
Well, the guys just came to me. Once I was on a roll. This is one of those things in life where everything just went right. They'd come to me. I'd finish the school, and some more guys would come. And so, okay, let's do it. I was just lucky to be at the right place at the right time. That's all it was. I wasn't no better than anyone else or nothing like that. I was at the right place at the right time. Nothing more.
That's very humble. That's very humble.
That's true.
Now, you were telling us that your wife was actually a wrestler as well.
Yes, Princess Little Cloud.
How did you meet her?
Wrestling. She was wrestling here in town, and we met at a place we hung around, a chestnut tree, and sat down and talked to her, and we talked all night. And then she left. She went to California. So I got myself booked in San Francisco. I could do that then. I was established enough where I could do that. And,
you could just call territories and say, hey, I want to come out there for a while. And
yeah, if they had an opening. Most of the time they had an opening. They're very good to me. The business was real good to me. So we got together out there and drove back to Minneapolis and married 25 years and 2 great kids. And that's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Now, one of the things I was laughing about was you were telling us that the fans, you you were a baby face, so they always wanted your autograph, and I guess the heels would just tell them no and hide from them and stuff. But you said you didn't like the adoration at all.
Well, no. Night after night, the same people, and
you said you kind of like hide.
we'd all hide if we could duck in doorways and everything else. And we want to meet girls. We're all single, and there'd be some pretty girls there, and they just push them out of the way. They wouldn't let them in. I'm going, hey, over here.
You said they would come to the restaurants you guys would eat and just sit at the booth across from you, just like stare at you.
Watch you eat.
God,
and when someone's watching you eat, you're going to spill something in your lap.
Yeah.
And they like that. Yeah, that's we had to go through that. But they're the people that paid us and supported us, so we had to be nice to them. They weren't bad people. They're actually very nice people. But, you work and you're tired. You want to sit down and eat and hang out with the guys, and they wouldn't let you.
And did you ever feel like you had to be in character when they're sitting there watching you? Or did you, when you went to eat, you're like, I don't give a I don't care what they're doing. This is our time now, me and my friends.
Well, yes, we all wanted to do that. The heels mostly had to stay in character. And it was hard for them. They had because the bigger heel they were, the nicer guys they were. And they'd be sitting there scowling at people. I remember Otto von Krupp, the great Malenko. He was the greatest. And he'd sit in the back in Luigi's and he'd scowl at people, and they'd, stay away from him. And we'd be blowing spitballs at him through the straw. There'd be spitballs bouncing off his head, and he's trying not to laugh.
Didn't he? Was Malenko one of your trainers who trained you?
No. I had my first match with him.
Okay.
He was a good friend.
How did you get trained? Who taught you how to wrestle?
I started on a carnival.
You just learned it on the job kind of thing?
Yes, and I learned the rest in the ring.
Wow. I guess that's easier than Harley Race, who started driving Happy Humphreys and washing him down after matches and stuff like that.
He had terrible stories about him.
You said that some of the biggest heels were the nicest guys. Yes. We asked you about Ric Flair. What do you think of Rick?
He's just a great guy. Great wrestler, great guy. Been a good friend for many years. A real champion.
A guy who, to this day, still loves to be Ric Flair everywhere he goes. But like you said, when you were raising your kids and you kind of were done, you didn't talk about wrestling. No. You didn't talk about your career to them.
No.
That's
crazy. You see it every day and every night.
I know, but your kids, I would think you would be like, you know how cool your dad used to be? I used to be the champion. I would think that you're so humble in that way. I love that about you.
Well, my ex-wife, Dixie, Princess Little Cloud, wouldn't allow him. She didn't want him in the business, which was a good thing, which was smart. She wouldn't allow him around the business, and they did very well without it.
So they have successful lives, not anything to do with wrestling now, basically.
Yes.
We were asking if you watch any wrestling now. You said no, but when did you lose interest?
Well, when everyone I'd watch it to see the people I knew. And they're all pretty well gone now, retired or died, so I lost interest.
What do you think about the theatrics that now is such a big part, like the over-the-top stuff, like fireballs and, that kind of stuff? Would you guys have ever, I know some people back in the day would use, a fork or something in the ring, but now, it's gone, people have pushed the boundaries so far. What do you think of that?
It's totally unnecessary. Just a lot of nice guys are going to get hurt for nothing. You don't need it.
Yeah.
Back then, we depended on our ability in the ring. Of course, I guess life was easier then, maybe. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it.
Yeah. I always wonder about that because you think, well, where they go in 10 years from now? Well, you got to keep pushing that ceiling higher and higher. Where does it stop? Or who gets killed, who gets injured before it stops? Owen Hart died.
There you go.
And they still do the same thing.
Unnecessary. He was a great wrestler, a wonderful guy. He didn't need that.
Yeah.
And people are still mad about it. He was such a nice guy. And he didn't need it. He was good enough in the ring. He could capture the audience. He's a good ring psychologist. He's good at everything. See, that's a good example. And it's going to happen again. There's going to be more people hurt, broken necks and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary. If they needed it, I could understand it, but they don't need it. They're all good enough where they don't need it.
And I think wrestling is so popular now that that's even more proof that you don't need it because it's so popular.
It'll always be popular. They got pictures in the pyramids in Egypt of wrestlers going that far back. It's been around, well, since forever, from the beginning of time. And it will be till the end of time. This is something people like.
So, Eddie, do you think you'll ever? You're in several wrestling Hall of Fames and all that stuff, and you're highly regarded. What do you want to do with yourself now? Like, what keeps you going? You know, because most people, as we were talking about, like Ric Flair had a match a year ago. Some people can't let go of the spotlight, and you had no problem. What do you do with yourself now? The guy who trained champions, what does he do with himself?
Just what I'm doing right now, talking to you. That's about it, as good as it gets.
We've had a blast talking to you today.
Thank you.
For people that don't know, you know, before this, we met up and we sat and talked for an hour and found out, you know, we both lived in Hollywood for years in the same parts. Nice. And just, I mean, I really have had a blast getting to know you. And you're just such a nice, humble guy.
Thank you.
That I feel like people want to is there a way people can contact you for autographs, or, you know, how often do you go out in public and do things? I know you do they do a yearly tribute to you at the local wrestling. It's what MAW?
Yeah. What
outside of that, how do fans that, you know, appreciate you contact you? Is there a way?
No, I just go to the matches, and I'll be at the wrestling matches. Other than that, I don't know where I'm going to be anyway.
That's awesome. But as we mentioned, there's talk of making a movie about you.
Yes, I've been out there twice.
You've been out to Malibu, yeah. And you said you have no idea who they're talking about playing you or anything like that.
No, I don't. No, I'll be there if they need me.
And you were one of the kind of the generation that didn't care about awards and gear and all that stuff. No, so you didn't really keep much, did you?
No. When I'd go home at night, it was over. That was it. You know, because, you know, you're in the ring and you're in the fan, you're on the road. You just kind of want to get away and relax and forget about everything.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. This was a blast. I mean, Katie, is there anything that you can think of that we were wanting to ask him that we didn't?
I've been listening to so many stories that I'm just so entranced by that I almost can't even think of anything. But just the pictures around here are absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we're going to... You gave us some photos and different things.
I got some stuff here I'm going to give you, too.
Yeah, so we'll show people here some of the photos from your career and different things. When you were a wrestler, some of the guys that you trained, and of course you were a referee for years.
Humble beginning.
Thank you so much for your time today, Eddie. I appreciate it, and I know everybody watching appreciates your touch on wrestling history.
Thank you very much.